Hey, HorseCenter fans, Matt and I are back, and we are bringing you our Kentucky Derby top tens just in the nick of time, Matt.
Yeah, Brian, right in the nick of time because the Rebel is coming up this weekend with lots of horses. Those top two horses, Game Winner and Probable, are finally going to hit the track.
Yeah, where do they land on Matt and I's top 10? We'll find out soon. Does your favorite land on our top 10? We'll see that too as Matt and I talk top 10 and a little bit of Rebel as we wait for the draw from the big race from Oaklawn Park. Watch it all now on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the outstanding pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Shipman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. We got an interesting weekend coming up with the Rebel at Oaklawn Park.
Yeah, Santa Anita Park, of course, due to their temporary closure, canceled the San Felipe last weekend. So a lot of those horses that were going to run the San Felipe will run this weekend at Oaklawn Park in the Rebel Stakes. Matt and I expect it to be split into two divisions. That draw is going to happen later today. But for now, Matt, let's jump right into the theme of our show, which is we haven't done a Kentucky Derby top 10 in a while. And people are asking, people want to know where we stand as of now. Let's jump right in. Matt, your number one horse for the Kentucky Derby, 7.5 weeks, only 7.5 weeks away, is...
Well, I'm still sticking with Game Winner, Brian, but finally, hopefully, Game Winner is going to run in a race, and we'll find out where he should really end up in the top 10.
That's right, Matt. We haven't seen Game Winner, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Champion, the Eclipse Award Champion, undefeated 4-for-4 since that early November date at Churchill Downs when he took down the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We're all waiting to see, and he is one of those horses rerouting from the San Felipe to the Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn Park this weekend, and he's not the only big one from Bob Baffert, Matt, because number one on my list is Improbable, and Improbable very much in the same boat as Game Winner. Now, he did race a little bit later last year. He won the Los Alamitos Futurity in impressive style, Matt. The son of Zitty Zip has not ran as well this year, and also was scheduled to face Game Winner in the San Felipe. Now he's going to be in the Rebel.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting how that whole thing shakes out. If it gets two divisions, where are those Baffert horses going to be? I guess Baffert could get lucky and they're separated in those two divisions, and he could have a chance of winning both of them and qualifying both of those horses into the Derby field in one afternoon.
Right, and that draw is going to be later today, so everybody's interested to see what shakes out. Again, we expect it. It's not necessarily a done deal that it'll be split, but with about 14, 15 horses expected, maybe a few more they can get, it looks like the Rebel probably will be split. And then Game Winner, Improbable. Game Winner number one on Matt's list, Improbable number one on my list. I'm sure Baffert and a lot of people are hopeful that they will be in separate divisions, but you never know. We'll see. I have a feeling, though, Matt, that they will be, somehow, some way, that they will be in separate divisions down at Oaklawn Park.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Brian.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about them, Matt. Game Winner, Game Winner didn't, for the most part, Game Winner didn't blow the doors off his two-year-old competition, but he was an obvious champion last year. A Grade 1 winner more than once. He did it at different distances, and he seemed just to do what was necessary in the Breeders' Cup, a little farther back than General, and it was clear he was the best horse that day at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, Brian, I agree with that. He wins his races in workmanlike fashion. Again, he wasn't really challenged in the end in any of the four races that he won. Probably your number one, Improbable, is maybe a little flashier out there. Beautiful stride, but there are a lot of people that question the City Zip side of Instagram's pedigree.
No, that's not me though. City Zip just was a wonderful, wonderful sire who sired horses on any surface at any distance, and Improbable, maybe City Zip's swan song as a sire, because Improbable, like you said, just a beautiful stride, a beautiful horse. We saw how he got over that Churchill Down strip when he won that Street Sense over some pretty nice horses, mind you, for absolute fun that day. Then he came back and won the Los Alfuturity in a romp over Mucho Gusto, Matt, who we both have in our top 10. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I tend to like Improbable a little bit more than Game Winner as far as potential as 3-year-olds. Listen, they were the best two-year-olds of last year for obvious reasons. They're one on each of our lists here, so we can't wait to see what they do in their return in the Rebel. Now, Matt, I have Game Winner at number 2 on my list. You dropped Improbable, or you have Improbable down to 3 on your list. So there is a horse vying for the top 3 here with both of us, along with the 2 Bafferts running in the Rebel.
Yeah, Brian, I certainly cannot ignore what War of Will has done on the racetrack this year for Mark Casse. I actually love what I've seen from War of Will out there. The son of War Front is already in qualified for the Derby, but the combination of tactical speed and endurance down the stretch for War of Will is the ideal qualities that Kentucky Derby winners have had in the last 5 or 6 years, and I just can't ignore that.
Yeah, and Matt, he reminds me a little bit of Game Winner and what he's been able to do in his races, whether he's really close to the lead or even just a little farther off it. He just takes control when he needs to, and then he has plenty down the lane, like you said. Mark Casse's been high on this horse for a while. He was a turf horse last year, got some good foundation, got some good experience running in big races on the grass. And since he's gone to dirt, whether it be a sloppy maiden at Churchill Downs or a couple of stakes races at Fairgrounds, like you said, Matt, he's been most impressive. I have him number 3 on our list. So our top 3s, while jumbled up a little bit, are the same 3 horses. We're looking at War of Will only a week away from his next race. He'll get his 3rd start. He's going a little different route than a lot of horses this year in modern day, where he's getting a little bit more in as a 3-year-old. So War of Will, we'll expect to see a week from Saturday. That's again at the Fairgrounds, and that'll be in the Louisiana Derby, Matt. Now, the next horse on my list is interesting to me, obviously, but he's also interesting in that I think you don't have him in your top 10 at all. I really like Country House. Country House is a son of Looking at Lucky, whose last 2 dirt races have really, really impressed me. Country House did get left at the gate at Gulfstream Park, which is a hard track to do that. Granted, it was only a maiden race, but he got totally left at the gate. He basically gave the field a dozen lengths out of the starting gate in that maiden race, and he just swooped by and still won for fun. Then he goes to a big, strong field in the Risen Star. War will beat him, and it was a clear win. But I tell you what, if Country House had a break that day, and ran a straight path down the stretch, I think we might have been looking at a whole different result in that Risen Star. That's how good I think Country House is for trainer Bill Mott. He's got to get over some issues, but I think Country House is a 1.25 mile horse, and I think he's got a lot of talent, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. I think he's got a lot of talent, and hey, Bill Mott's got a loaded barn on the Kentucky Derby Trail. Spoiler alert again, this year. Country House, I think, is a horse that's got a lot of potential. I don't know, maybe the Derby is a little bit soon, and we are doing Derby top 10s here, but down the road, I expect good things from Country House also.
Well, I like what he's done this year, Matt, both that maiden race at Gulfstream Park and the Risen Star already. He will also, looks like he'll be in the Louisiana Derby a week from Saturday to face off War Will again. So 1.25 mile horse, Matt, that's my strong opinion on him. Number 5 on my list is a horse that you have even higher on your list, Matt, and that horse comes from the Shug McGahee barn.
Yeah, I've got Code of Honor in the number 4 spot. You've got Code of Honor in the number 5 spot. And I know in past shows we've talked about his bounce back performance in the Fountain of Youth. And Code of Honor is going to come back in the Florida Derby on March 30th. So we both like Code of Honor. We like the move that he made in there. Got the breeding to be a Kentucky Derby contender. Got 54 points already, so he's already got a spot in the Run for the Roses.
Okay, Matt. And on my list, I had him at the Florida Derby probable, but possibly the Wood Memorial. Although I guess the Florida Derby does make a lot of sense. That's the same path Shug used a few years ago when Orb won, running several prep races down in Gulfstream Park. Code of Honor, he's out of a European sire, although with American bloodlines in there for sure. That's Noble Mission, a young sire who certainly you would think would give distance to his offspring. And Code of Honor looks like a horse that can handle a distance. Listen, he caught that really fast pace in the Fountain of Youth, and he took advantage. But I like the fact that he took advantage of that early, and he took the race over as they straightened out, basically. Unlike his Champagne, where he got off to a bad start and was just late. A good rally for second by all accounts, for sure. But in the Fountain of Youth, he showed more ability to get into the race earlier. Nice maiden win at Saratoga. We just got to draw a line through the seasonal debut, the Mucho Macho Man. We both like Code of Honor moving forward, probably the Florida Derby. Hey, Matt, your number 5 is also certainly on my list, and your number 5 is your third Bob Baffert trainee in the top 5.
Yeah, that's Mucho Gusto. Mucho Gusto, who was last seen winning the Robert B. Lewis at Santa Anita. So it is really easy to forget about some of these horses who had really nice victories, and that was a really nice victory for Mucho Gusto in there. It looks like at this point that in order to keep all of his horses separated, Baffert's going to send Mucho Gusto to the Sunland Derby, which is coming up on March 24th.
Right. He'll be running the day after the Louisiana Derby in the rich Sunland Park Derby out there. And you got to wonder, because Mucho Gusto was supposed to run in the Rebel, if this is a declaration from Baffert, hey, listen, Improbable and Game Winner are my top 2. I'm going to move Mucho Gusto because I want to make room for them. Or maybe it's just more of a timing thing where Improbable and Game Winner needed the race and he wanted to keep them all separated. Either way you look at it, I'm not quite as high on Mucho Gusto as you are. I remember that Low South Futurity, Matt. I remember how easy it was for Improbable to put him away pretty early on in that stretch run at Low South last year. Of course, it's been a while since that, so we have to see what both of these Bafferts do this year. Mucho Gusto caught a sloppy track in the Robert B. Lewis, and he looked very good doing it. But I think that race was set up well for him, and it was a sloppy track. So I'm for that reason, I have him just a little bit lower. But I do respect the talent. He's run a lot of good races. I have him down at 7. Above him, though, Matt, I have another horse that you don't have on your list at all. And that's a well-bred Son of Tappet. That's a constant refrain this year. A well-bred Son of Tappet. This one, though, is trained by Mark Hennig. Bourbon War has steadily moved forward. He was well beaten 4th in the Remsen last year, but he's looked good down at Gulfstream. Nice allowance win, and then he really closed quite well in the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, Brian, he certainly did. Took advantage of that really fast pace in there, passing tired horses. He was gaining on Code of Honor at the end, but I think, as you mentioned before, I think that was a difference in the moves that they made in the race. I wasn't, let me put it this way. I need to see Bourbon War do it again and advance and get a win before I'm going to consider putting him in my top 10.
Fair enough. I just like those 2 Gulfstream races this year, the allowance race before the Fountain of Youth. And the way he closed in the Fountain of Youth opened my eyes a little bit. So Bourbon War has to be up there for me. Hey, Matt, who's your number 6? I don't think I have him on my list.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that you didn't have Signal Man, Brian, in your top 10. Everybody felt that going into the Fountain of Youth, that was not a spot where Signal Man was going to be geared up, and Gulfstream Park was probably not the kind of track that would favor a big horse like Signal Man. But I haven't forgotten the impressive performances that he turned in as a 2-year-old, and I still look forward to him advancing, especially in his next start, which is going to be in the Bluegrass on April 6th. I think Keeneland is a track that the Kenny McPeak runner is going to appreciate far more than Gulfstream Park, and McPeak is going to have him at 100% for that race so he can get Derby qualified. So I'm hanging in there with Signal Man for another shot.
Fair enough, Matt, and I don't blame you for doing so. However, he's going to have to really move forward in the Bluegrass. He's only having 2 preps for the Kentucky Derby, if he indeed does run in the Kentucky Derby. And let me tell you, the first one was not good, Matt. We can compare him a little bit to Code of Honor, and that Code of Honor didn't do a whole lot of running in the Mucho Macho Man, and then bounced right back with a nice win in the Fountain of Youth. But I think there are differences there as well. First off, Signalman is later. Code of Honor's getting 3 starts, and that Mucho Macho Man was nice and early in the year where he has plenty of time to move forward. Signal Man, and I think his Mucho Macho Man, call it dull, but it was better than Signal Man's Fountain of Youth. I looked at Signal Man in the Fountain of Youth, saw that rail open up for him, and he just was empty. He was getting passed by horses in the stretch with that fast pace. So in some ways, the race did set up for him in that he got a good trip and a really fast pace, but he didn't do any running. He was working well down there, and his 7th place in the Fountain of Youth as the second to last prep before the Kentucky Derby. I'm dubious that he is going to be a real Derby threat at this point. But like you said, could bounce back in the Bluegrass. Matt, my 7 was Mucho Gusto. We already talked about. Who's your 7?
My 7 is Hidden Scroll. Again, I'm going to give Hidden Scroll another shot, hoping that this time that he can settle a little bit more and hold back on his speed a little bit more. He's slated to come back in the Florida Derby. Hey, we know this horse is talented. Bill Mott has said that this horse is talented. If he can put the quality of the speed and turn it into tactical speed, he has to stay in my top 10.
Fair enough. And for me, he's not in my top 10 because it's who I think could win the Kentucky Derby here. So if it was a list of top 10 most talented 3-year-olds, he would be in my list. I worry about the Son of Heartspun being really, really ready for the Kentucky Derby. Maiden in the wet seal track was awfully nice, of course, but then he didn't show the ability to relax or to rate or to have enough down the stretch in the Fountain of Youth. And I think the competition only gets harder. The Florida Derby will be a tough race, but then, of course, 10 furlongs in his 4th race at Churchill in a field of 20, that seems tough for a horse who hasn't proven that he has any ability yet to relax. Certainly a talented horse who could show quite a bit more in the Florida Derby. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Matt, my number 8 is a horse you also have on your list. It's also from trainer Bill Mott. It's also a well-bred son of Tappet. In fact, this one's also a son of Close Hatches, who was a wonderful race mare just a few years ago. Of course, we're talking about Tacitus, who broke free late from the field and set a stakes record in the Tampa Bay Derby.
Yeah, and a nice performance, a real big step up from his maiden win at Aqueduct in November. Again, this is a horse that Bill Mott likes a lot, a horse that Mott insists is going to be better as the distances increase.
Yeah, that's obviously good quality as we move to the Kentucky Derby. I also like that Bill Mott thinks he's kind of a big, strong, rugged individual as well. He said, well, he's certainly going to get one more prep. Could very well be the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, so you'll get to see him up close there. Listen, I wasn't as impressed with the Tampa Bay Derby maybe as some people. I thought it was kind of a scrum at the 3/16 at the 8th pole, and Tacitus was the one who got through kind of inside between horses and made it work for him. But I didn't necessarily think he was way better than Outshine or Win or maybe even another one or two in that field. Having said that, it was his first race of the year. He should get better. The breeding for him to move forward like that, I think, was a real strong step. There's a lot to like here, Tacitus, and I think we haven't even seen the best from him yet. So 8th, I could have had him higher, but I'm not ready to call him a champion yet just off that Tampa Bay Derby. Matt, your number 8 is another horse who's got a lot of talk but hasn't yet done it in stakes races.
Yep, another Baffert. Hey, I figure if I throw enough Bafferts in my top 10, I got a good chance of having the Kentucky Derby winner there. But seriously, folks, Roadster was impressive in his last race. Son of Quality Road. He's slated to start next in the Santa Anita Derby, which will be interesting to see how that's all going to shake out, and who will be in there in the next round of Derby prep races. But he came back and was very impressive in that allowance race against a good field after the throat surgery. So he has every right to take another step forward.
He does. But he doesn't have Kentucky Derby points, and I don't think he's going to be the best Bob Baffert in the Santa Anita Derby. We'll see how that shakes out. We'll see more. We'll know more after the Rebel on Saturday. I wasn't as impressed with that win, I think, as a lot of people. I think Nolo Contesta was down on the rail and didn't really kick it in until it was too late. In fact, in the gallop out, he was quickly past Roadster. I worry about Roadster at 10 furlongs. I worry about Roadster being at his best as soon as the Kentucky Derby. And right now, what I'm expecting to happen, like I said, I don't think he's going to be the horse to beat in the Santa Anita Derby. Having said that, there is a lot of talent there, and I could be wrong, and he could wow us in the Santa Anita Derby, and then I'll be forced to join you and have Roadster back in my top 10. An interesting horse, but I worry if he's truly ready for the Kentucky Derby. Number 9 on my list, Matt, I thought you were going to have on your list, coming from the Jerry Hallendorfer barn, West Point Thoroughbreds. The son of Uncle Mo has absolutely dominated California breds out there on the West Coast. Sounds a little bit familiar, seeing what California Chrome did a few years ago, Matt. I have Galilean at 9. You don't have him on your list this week.
I don't, Brian, but you can't have everybody on there, and I do like Galilean. Got him on my Kentucky Derby fantasy team, and a horse that could certainly step forward, but he's looking to make his first Kentucky Derby, official Kentucky Derby prep race in the Rebel, and even though it's 2 divisions, there's a lot of Baffert in there.
Yeah, Matt, the Rebel, even if there's 2 divisions, they're going to be 2 interesting divisions. And right now I have Galilean as my 3rd favorite horse running in the Rebels. Listen, he's been that impressive in winning these races out in California. I think he's for real to an extent. Mile and a quarter is a question, and the class move up is going to be a question. But I do expect him to run a good race in the Rebel. And, one of the best 10 horses as far as moving forward to the Kentucky Derby. It's a yes for me from this unheralded California bred. Matt, we've gotten down to the very bottom of our Kentucky Derby top 10s here, and we have not talked about anyone from the Gotham. We need to start talking about some Gotham horses now. Who's your 10?
My 10 is our friend Heichel in here, who made a tremendous stretch run down the middle of the track to win the Gotham in the 1-turn mile. He just keeps on stepping up and advancing as distance is added on. I know it was a 1-turn mile. He's probably going to move on to the Wood Memorial next time out. Loves Aqueduct. He was coming fast, chasing a fast pace. And I'll be honest with you, setting aside the difference between the 1-turn mile and the 2-turn mile in the Tampa Bay Derby. Both of those races had very fast paces, but Heichel had the most impressive closing move.
Yeah, Matt, I'm glad you brought it up because I was about to as well. Pace, ladies and gentlemen, often makes the race, and that was very evident as we were watching the Gotham and the Tampa Bay Derby last week. Tampa Bay Derby was fast. The Gotham was even faster. Different kind of race. One was a 2-turn race. One was a 1-turn race. Heichel I liked. In fact, Matt and I both kind of talked Heichel up quite a bit last week as horses we were going to bet in the Gotham. Matt, I did win some money. I hope you did as well. Matt?
I must admit that I did have some of our HorseCenter viewers come up to me right after the race and say, thank you, Matt and Brian, for talking so much about Heichel because they had some tickets they were going to go cash.
Good. I'm always glad to hear that. It really was, though, a case of pace makes the race. And that's why I don't have Heichel yet in my top 10, Matt, for a couple of reasons. First off, I think this Gotham just set up for him so well. They ran fast, and then slow. That helped Heichel, who didn't look like he was going to get there probably at the 8th pole, just kick it into another gear, or seemingly, comparatively, kick it into another gear and just mow them down late in the Gotham. And that was an impressive move. But hey, 10 furlongs, Churchill Downs, 1 turn, night and day difference. And this might be, frankly, the best setup he ever gets in the Gotham. A nice horse, a good horse, and a horse I'm going to look for throughout his career if the setup is right. But I'm not ready to jump on the bandwagon for him at 1.25 miles at Churchill Downs just yet. I'm very interested to see what he can do in the 2-turn wood. He won't get that kind of crazy pace setup, but we'll see. I certainly could see him win the wood. So nice horse, Heichel. And the other horse out of the Wood Memorial or the Gotham that I have on my list is Instagram, Matt. And Instagram, I've been kind of negative on a few horses, saying, well, I didn't like it quite as much as everybody else. But I tell you what, I thought Instagram got a bad route because I thought the Gotham was anything but set up for him. 7 months away, super fast pace where he chases, and then he had that Not That Brady, that fast New York bred, come right up to him early in the race on the outside. I thought Instagram never had a breather. Mind Control got a trip where he opened up the rail for him. Instagram was a little wide on the turn. Instagram comparatively kept trying down the lane and was right there with the other horses, Mind Control and Much Better, who also ran a good race to be fourth. Nothing away from Mind Control. He ran a good race in the Gotham as well. But I think everything was against Instagram in this as far as how the race was run. He needed a race, and this is the kind of race that's going to give him a lot moving forward. I have no idea, just like a few others on here, if he's going to be 1.25 mile horse, but I still think he's one of the most talented horses in America as far as 3-year-olds go.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Brian. I was nothing but disappointed with Instagram's performance in there. I thought that he needed a great deal of urging to get engaged in the race coming down the backstretch and then heading towards the finish. He was lucky to pass Much Better, the horse that had gone 44 for the half coming down the wire. And you can certainly say he hadn't raced in this, since last year, and that is a valid excuse. But there was very little that I could take away from the Gotham that makes me want to keep Instagram on my in my top 10. After the race, talking to his connections, quite frankly, they were stunned and almost without words after the race about how to describe Instagram's performance. So he dropped out of my top 10. Again, like you said, he certainly could be a factor in races later in the year, but I'm dubious about us seeing him in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, the Kentucky Derby is a question, but I will stick with Grade 1 horse for sure. And I I can't say that about a lot of these horses. 7 months is a long time. And like I said, that race did not set up for him. He was pressured early, stalking a 44, went wide, and was not without run down the stretch. So Instagram for me is a major talent, and I'm keeping him in my top 10, unlike most people, I guess. And that's fine. That's what makes horse racing go around. Matt, we've talked a little bit about this Rebel coming up. Again, we're patiently waiting for the draw, which is supposed to happen in 8 or 10 hours today. Improbable game winner, very well maybe in either division, which is interesting. Galilean, we mentioned as one of the top contenders. Some of the other horses we're looking at there, Matt, Gunmetal Gray, also from West Point. Omaha Beach, how good was his maiden win last time? Long Range Toddy, I think, hasn't gotten a perfect trip yet, and he's been consistent. So I want to see more, especially if there's a strong pace from Long Range Toddy. Laughing Fox, I was very impressed with his maiden. So it's a nice group of horses setting up for the Rebel. Who else are you looking at?
I mean, you've certainly mentioned the main contenders. I think between the divisions, Asmussen may have who knows how many, 4 or 5 in there. I think Jersey Agenda's coming back, and he ran a nice race last time out in the Southwest also. Be kind of exciting if they were all in one division, but having the 2 divisions is going to be interesting also.
Probably 2 divisions. Otherwise, you got a wild field of 14 for the Rebel. That will be fun. Also, Matt, on the same card, I should mention one of my favorite horses in training. She unfortunately had to miss the Breeders' Cup last year, but I think the world of Elate, also from the barn of Bill Mott, Elate is coming back in the Azeri, and it's been a while since we've seen her.
Yes, Brian, and I'm sure she'll come back strong, and I hope she can have a nice long campaign, because I think it would be a lot of fun to have some Elate Monomoy Girl matchups at Saratoga this summer.
Absolutely, and they would both be pointed to Saratoga, and they are 2 serious racehorses where the older males may lack, the older females may make up for this year with horses like Midnight Pursue, another one to mention, but Elate especially, and of course Monomoy Girl, the 3-year-old champion from 2018. All right, folks, that's our Horse Center for this week. We will definitely be back next week talking Louisiana Derby, Sunland, and we'll certainly talk about everything that went down at Oaklawn Park, whether it's 1 race or probably 2 races in the Rebel Stakes this week. I want to thank our sponsor, the best contest site out there. That's Derby Wars. I also really want to thank you folks for tuning in every week as we inch closer to the Kentucky Derby here on Horse Center. If you haven't hit that subscribe button for us, our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation, please do that now. And Matt, why don't you give us all some pearls of wisdom in your closing shot for this week?
I'm looking forward to the Rebel and another exciting weekend of racing. And again, I want to agree with what Brian said. Thank all you guys for watching the show. And as always, I want to thank Brett Workman for putting together the show.
Thanks to our producer, Brett. We couldn't do it without him. And as we leave, Matt, let's trail off on that race. Obviously, we had a little disagreement on, and that is the Gotham, although we were both liking Heikel, the winner of the Gotham Stakes Saturday at Aqueduct. See you next week, folks.
Just about set for the start of the Gotham. And they're off. And Instagram broke well and is going right out for the lead. Teekvin Flew on the outside. Knicks Go now moves up, along with Much Better. Knicks Go will be the early leader, and Much Better is right there on the outside. The front 2 have now opened up almost 4 lengths on Not That Brady, who's on the outside of Instagram. Then it's Teekvin Flew next in 5th, followed by Mind Control in 6th. It's another 6 lengths to the 2 trailers, Haikal. And at the rail, Family Biz. The opening quarter was 22 and 1/5 seconds, and Much Better has now taken over the lead from Knicks Go. Much Better going away here now to lead by 3. Knicks Go in second. Instagram is asked to pick it up. On the outside is the New York bred, Not That Brady. The opening half was 44 and 2/5 seconds. They race around the far turn, and it's Much Better with a 4-length lead. Knicks Go is in second. Instagram is third. On the outside, it's Not That Brady. Mind Control is now coming on down at the rail. Then it's Teakvin Flu, followed by High Call and Family Biz, and they're all chasing Much Better, who has the lead at the top of the stretch, 3/4 in 109 and 1. Here's Instagram on the outside. Here's Mind Control down at the rail. 3 of them across the track with an eighth of a mile to the finish. Mind Control down at the rail. Instagram on the outside. Much Better's in between those two. The 3 of them continue to battle it out. And here's High Call making a late run on the extreme outside. They come for the finish. It is High Call to win the Gotham. High Call from way out of it takes the Gotham Stakes. Then it was Mind Control and a photo for third, and the mile was completed in 1 minute, 35 and 3/5 seconds.